Good evening, folks. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to a Monday night. It is the Earthmaster out here, about 11:07 p.m. That's California time here. August 4th, 2025 is the date. Latest activity shows a 3.9 earthquake here across the area of the Peru-Chile Trench down there across the that major subduction zone. One of the latest quakes there in the cluster of earthquake activity, but that's pretty common there on any given day. Let's go ahead and take a look here, see what we got going on here across the West Coast in terms of earthquake activity. Starting up here in the Pacific Northwest. Handful of earthquakes up here, including a couple smaller quakes around the Washington area outside of Seattle. The Mount Rainier area up here has been showing, you know, the USGS has only been reporting here about 2 earthquakes out of every 20 or so. I want to show you guys here real quick the Cascadia tremor, and then we'll check into the Mount Rainier activity. By the way, Cascadia tremor is elevated this evening. Once again, that's why I'm going to cover this in more detail here in just a second. 400 epicenters of Cascadia tremor underneath the Washington and Oregon area. Now, as far as Mount Rainier goes, we're looking at the seismograph station over here across this volcano. Got well, wow, it almost looks like, you know what it almost looks like, folks? It almost looks like the seismologists there and geologists are watching my videos, because I talk about amplitude readings here and how they squash down the earthquakes here, right? Look what they did to Mount Rainier. Similar to the Yellowstone seismograph stations, they drop down the amplitudes here, so we're not seeing as much earthquake activity here showing up on the graph. Man, I tell you what, it's a little crazy. So this is what it looked like in the previous UTC time, right? There's still some earthquake activity occurring out there, right? There's numerous earthquakes, as you can see here on the map, but it looks like there's been some major adjustment here on this previous UTC time here, where the amplitudes are squashed. I hope that is not the case here, because that means that the amplitudes have been turned down, and that earthquake activity will barely show up on any of these graphs, which would match what they're stating here, meaning that there's no earthquakes. But I'm telling you, folks, there's a lot more earthquake activity occurring up there than what's being reported across Mount Rainier. So the tremor map out there is pretty significant as well. Let me show you guys 400 epicenters of tremor in the last 24 hours here. So this year has been pretty active. I want to go back, well, let's go back to the beginning of this year, right about here to today's time period. And we've got, let me show you this enormous number right here. Let's check that out. Okay, let me show you guys here a little bit closer proximity of the can you guys spot the Cascadia tremor zone out here? Can you spot the Cascadia subduction zone? It's pretty obvious out here where strain is building, right? This is not earthquake activity, but got to imagine here, upstream from this tremor is the locked area that sits offshore, and that extends from the interface about the surface area to about 5 kilometers deep. We had to bring up the oceanic crust view to show you guys. So right here, that plate boundary, see that red line there? That's the Cascadia subduction zone, and it's our big mega quake potential out here across the Pacific Northwest. You guys see how this is folding in? You guys see that? They actually call it the Cascadia fold and thrust belt, and there's a reason behind that, right? The reason behind that, let me see if I got this up here, is because this region here, this is pretty much a cutout view of the Cascadia subduction zone, right? They're showing here on intervals 500 to 600 years, but that's not necessarily true, and I'll explain that to you here in a second. But this is the cutout of the Cascadia subduction zone. The locked area is in the red here. That is pretty much from the coast of the Pacific Northwest and Northern California offshore here to the interface, which is right here. So obviously the Juan de Fuca plate here is shoving underneath this area to the east underneath the North American region. Tremor activity occurs down below here underneath the locked area. So as we get tremor activity occurring in the deeper areas of the Cascadia, guess where that strain builds? That red line right here. So that's why we're seeing elevated folding and thrusting of that the Cascadia subduction zone there. Let me see if I can find my previous image here. Is this it? No, that's a scenario. I got a number. Okay, here we go. This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. That's kind of what I wanted to show you guys here. So this is just a layout here of a subduction zone. And the Cascadia subduction zone fits in perfectly here with this event. So with this tremor activity occurring, right? That's occurring downstream here. So as that locked area, the subduction zone, as that Juan de Fuca plate is being further pushed underneath this area, that locked area is building up uplift here. Notice that plate, the North American plate. So this is the Cascadia fold and thrust belt right here. That's locked and loaded. It's ringing up like a spring right now in the last 325 years. That's why we're getting that uplift here, right? That's building up. Now, when the earthquake hits, there's a big release and strain out here. Subsidence occurs here along the Coast Range, which means areas along Washington all the way down to Northern California are going to drop like a rock along the coastline, and that's a big deal. I'm thinking about 10 feet or so, that area is going to drop along the coastline, extreme coastline where the areas are building up. So as that occurs, obviously we have to worry about a tsunami that's going to come in there for the Cascadia subduction zone. And it could be anywhere between a few feet up to 100 feet in height for the Cascadia tsunami, which could occur within about 15 to 30 minutes there. So this is not a little worry, right? There's so much complacency going on with the Cascadia right now. And I worry about it so much because this is the perfect time that disasters happen, when everyone's complacent, everyone's not worried about it. They're just worried about what's going on with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency or with political stuff, right? That is the time when big earthquakes hit. I want to show you guys here real quick. This is a beautiful, absolutely informational article here when it comes to the Cascadia subduction zone. This site is actually called survivingcascadia.com, and I will include this in my update video in the description below. Okay, so long time ago there, we're talking about, this is 10,000 years of history along the Cascadia, okay? Long time ago, there used to be large intervals between major ruptures. That has shortened up to where we're at right now. The average interval runs about 280 years or so in terms of earthquake, big mega quake activity, right? These folks here are showing 246 years on average in the last 9,000 years. Look where we're at here today, folks. So this was actually put out a number of years ago, but we're above that now. So obviously the big earthquake hasn't struck. Do you guys see what's missing right here? It's a line. That doesn't extend much further from here. I guarantee you that line is not going to extend much further from the point that we're seeing here on the map to our next big earthquake here. Looking back here, there's obviously been some major rupture along the Cascadia subduction zone. Sometimes partial ruptures, and then sometime later a full rupture. And they happen on regular intervals here. As far as the partial ruptures go, it almost seems like they happen in between independently the large ruptures. So we have not had a partial rupture since the big earthquake back in 1700. That means we're well overdue for the partial, but also potentially overdue for the full rupture of the 9.0, potentially greater earthquake activity there along the Cascadia subduction zone. So I'm going to back out here real quick and show you guys the percentages here. This is a very informational site here. I'm telling you, I need to back out just a little bit. So likelihood of an 8.0 earthquake. There's been a lot of information put out here in terms of the Cascadia right now. So there's a 37% possibility here of seeing a big earthquake here in a number of years. Let me see here real quick where we're at. Goodness, this is just back out. I have it blown up here so we could see the graphs here, but I think we need to start up here at the top. I don't even know if this is the right place I need to be in. This is actually a pretty interesting article right here, though. Look at this. 6,000 years of history on the Cascadia subduction zone. These are the average number of years between major Cascadia subduction zone events in chronological order. Most recent on the right, we're looking at right now, we're at 325 years since the last Cascadia. So look at all these numbers in the 200 and 100 range. There's only been a couple here in the 300 range. So we are at a time period. A lot of people asking me when. You guys say soon. When is soon? This could happen tonight. It could happen tomorrow morning for your Tuesday morning update or Tuesday morning meeting. We are getting very close here into a time period. Oh, man, that was only 37, but that was a long time ago. Gotta point out here. So are we doomed? Japan is a great example of how an earthquake like this, as bad as it is survivable, right? Obviously, it's not the end of the world. It can be the end of the world for many people if they're not aware of what's going on. But there's this article right here is very interesting. Scenarios, man, there's so much on this article right here. I'll have to cover this a little bit later, but as you can see, there's probably about 15 or 20 articles here on this site, and they're all covering the Cascadia subduction zone and what if. This is subsidence out here. Look at this. This is absolutely crazy. Let me blow this up here a little bit. Subsidence in terms of feet. Hello, we're talking about 8 to 9 feet there along the extreme coastline. So if you're around Coos Bay, Bandon, Oregon, can you believe this, right? So we're talking about a 9-foot or greater drop along the Bandon, Oregon, and the southern coast of Oregon when the Cascadia subduction zone decides to finally rupture. So if that's not bad enough, imagine potentially up to 100-foot tsunami coming in here after this land already drops, because you got to remember this is building up steam here. This is folding here, so the elevation is it's building, and I can show you guys here real quick. Let me go back here and I'll pull up another video, or at least another. I got so many windows open here. This is the uplift that's occurring here. Okay, I'm going to show you guys in the GPS statement. This is what's occurring along the Oregon coastline, Northern California coastline as well. This is uplift. This is going to drop by 9 feet when the earthquake strikes, because this is the locked area. Okay? So as we go over here to the GPS stations here across the area of Oregon, this is around Bandon. Okay, Bandon, Oregon. Okay, you guys see me show this across Kilauea Volcano and other areas that are included in uplift type of events. But this is not volcano activity. This is uplift in terms of the Cascadia building up that next earthquake out here. We're getting that fold going on among the North American plate to build up the next big earthquake out here. Excuse me. Since 2008, look how much has been going up here. That's the inflation chart there, folks. Imagine since 1700 how this has been going up. So the potential there that this will drop 9 feet or so along the coastline of Oregon is very accurate. This is not fear-mongering, folks. I think so many people are just in the naysay. They're like, oh, this is never going to happen. You're just getting this for views and clicks. You know, it just, come on. It's never going to happen, folks. Hello. You know, I could probably see people saying that, right? But, man, also those are the people that are saying, well, the asteroids never hit the Earth, and you know, nothing's ever going to hit the planet. The sky is really not blue. The Earth is really flat. Come on, hello. Okay, so you got to think here, folks. Okay, think of how much time has passed since that last big earthquake there in 1700. Okay, I want to put out this information in respect to saving people's lives out here. Because Coos Bay is going to drop like a rock. 9-foot drop with the earthquake. Can you imagine that? An earthquake there of 9.0, and then your house and the whole beach there in Coos Bay is going to drop 9 feet from the earthquake, along with all this extreme shaking, by the way, which is, let me bring this up here. This is the, this is the shaking map here in a scenario for the Cascadia subduction zone. They have it mainly amplified out there across the areas of Bandon, Oregon, Crescent City, Coos Bay, Brookings, because this area has been building up, acting as a spring, so to speak. And these areas are going to experience an earthquake like none other, into the violent up to the extreme category, with 9-foot drop of the land. I'm worried about that. Could you imagine just 9-foot drop? Okay, maybe we could deal with it. That's pretty survivable, right? But the potential for a 100-foot tsunami that could come in 15 to 30 minutes later, very quickly. You don't have a lot of time here between the shaking that you're going to feel and the drop of the land, between that 100-foot tsunami that could come inland. You have to go inland immediately, like crazy. There is a there's a site here, okay? It's called, well, it's NANOOS.org. I'll try to leave these links here for you guys to look at in this update video. Okay, this is pretty much like a tsunami brochure for the folks that are living out here. Now, this is, let's see here where we're at. This is the Oregon area, obviously. Regions of, let's see where we're at. South, Newport South. This is the Newport South area. So this is a little sketchy as well. The orange area shows local and distant tsunami, earthquake and tsunami zones. This, goes in well inland there. Across the area of Newport Cove, there's a lot of inundation going on here. And this is just what they're predicting will happen with a big earthquake, such as the Cascadia. But obviously, this could go well inland, more further than what they're showing on the map here. But the evacuation areas out there, are extremely important when it comes to getting the heck out of harm's way. There's so many residential areas out there and communities and towns that are sitting right in the inundation zone there. We're talking about a similar to what we've seen there in Japan. Not to mention areas up in Washington and stuff. But this is a, and look at that. That covers into Seattle as well. We're talking about tsunami waves coming into Seattle because of that inundation and that flow of tsunami waves well into the area of Seattle. This is a major disaster that's waiting to happen that we have not experienced yet. So I'm going to include that there in the update video link. But I'm a little concerned here, folks, because the inflation going on out there is elevated across the Cascadia. Tremor activity has been elevated out there across the entirety of the Cascadia, pretty much since the 8.8. There's a lot going on out there across the Cascadia right now. And we're getting these little hints of earthquake activity. Look at this in the last 7 days out there. Southern end, central portion of the Cascadia along the locked area. I'm leaning more towards the southern end of the Cascadia, maybe experiencing rupture. That does happen in between major ruptures here. Okay, the last one happened at 1700 AD. Okay, but previous to that, we had one back in 1468, and then a partial rupture in 1400. So there was only about 68 years between the partial rupture and a full rupture along that Cascadia. In between the 1150 AD full rupture. Look at that. Like I say, this could occur anytime, folks. I don't like deleting comments, but I've seen so many people here commenting, "Oh, you're just fear-mongering. Nothing's going to happen." And in fact, with the 8.8 earthquake here that struck in the Russia area recently, someone commented that this is false. You're putting out fear-mongering about the tsunami statement. This was a legit tsunami statement from the Tsunami Warning Center on the 8.8 earthquake a number of days ago there in July. I'm thinking here, a lot of people love to see disaster. They love to see death. They love to see destruction. So when it doesn't happen, they get upset. And that's not okay. That is really not okay there, folks. But we got to watch out here because we're living in a time here where we could see that next red line happen. And it makes sense, right? Because at any time here in the last 6,000 years or so, there's been no longer time here compared to what we're seeing right now. To ignore that would be not cool. We have to pay attention to this. But no one, obviously no one can predict exactly when the next mega quake is going to happen out here, but it's building. We are right there. We are right there, folks. I'm telling you. One earthquake down here across southern end of the Cascadia this morning, about 1 o'clock this morning. That's what they're showing there. It's a matter of time here, I think. So we'll move on past that. I will try to include here all these links that I just showed you guys so you guys can check it out yourself. This is not links I made up. These are all official sites here that shows what you're going to experience if you're along the coastline of Oregon, how it's going to drop 9 feet, how the tsunami is going to come in 100 feet and inundate that area. It's just, that's a cold, hard truth. We've seen it in Japan in 2011. That's going to happen here in Oregon, Washington, and Northern California. That's a promise. That is not something you want to mess around with. Look at Alaska back there, 9.2 back in 1964. That's a pretty good drop. So imagine the Oregon coast dropping 9 feet like that, and then the ocean coming in with a tsunami wave. Let's go ahead and check out the rest of the globe out here. A couple earthquakes down there across the... Well, this is down there across the Brawley seismic zone. We got a little bit of swarming going on there across the area. This is the extensional boundary here of the San Andreas Fault, a spreading center on the Brawley seismic zone. And, man, it's kicking up here a little bit. Got 3.0, 2.3, 2.8. A little bit of movement stirring up down there across the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. For those of you that want to say it always is active, nothing's big's going to happen there. You're always saying that. Well, hello. One of these days, you're going to be eating cake there. So we got a little bit of activity stirring up there in Southern California. That's more active than normal. Okay, I try to point out these individual events here, and it's getting a little bit of activity out here, folks. So what you want to do with that information, take it at will. But let you know, an 8.1 out there will make you know what's going on. Quite a bit of activity out there across Nevada as well. The rest of the country here, man, Kansas, what is going on out there in Kansas? Earthquake country in Kansas? I absolutely love Kansas, to be honest. Hopefully my home state here pretty soon. I'm not even joking. Me and Missy Mimi's came out here earlier this year to experience a blizzard up there in northern Kansas and the portions of Nebraska. But man, I'm going to give a shout out here real quick to Augusta, Kansas, okay? The reason why is because when I stopped in here, I was absolutely impressed with the courteous, very personable customer service out there in Augusta. From where we stayed at the hotel to the Walmart in Augusta, everyone was very professional and nice. I'm giving a big shout out to Augusta because maybe, just maybe, that may be my home area. Okay, Augusta, Kansas. I love it out there. That's outside of Wichita to the east there. But man, they've been getting a lot of earthquake activity out there. And it's at the, it's kind of within the North American craton there. I'm starting to think maybe there may be some fault systems out here across Kansas that we're really not aware about. It's not in a majorly highly seismically active zone. In fact, it should be relatively quiet out there. But we've been getting a lot of earthquake activity out there in Kansas recently. So kind of watching that closely outside of Salina here. The latest quake of 3.0 this afternoon among many in the last week. North American plate on the move. Let's take a look here at the world view, so to speak. Hawaii did... Let's go check out Hawaii, okay? Because I am really interested in see if this has erupted yet. I'm thinking we should by now, right? If you watched my update video this morning, you would know that we're getting very close to it. Double check everything here. We're good. KP is good. Let's go check out the webcam up there at the summit. Hello. Oh, we're glowing. We are definitely glowing up there across one crater area there. I'm thinking that's a north vent. Let's go over here to the inflation data, see what we got, folks. Got a little bit of up and down here. It's getting ready. If you're out there, what is it? 3 hours behind, probably 9 o'clock or so, 8 o'clock there across Hawaii time. We are maximum pressurization there across Kilauea Volcano. So that eruption could occur at any time right now. There was a little bit of deflation. Little odd. It's behaving a little bit differently than the last 30 eruptions or so, but it should happen soon. Should be spectacular. So if you're out there on the Big Island of Hawaii, man, heads up. Should happen pretty soon there. All right, let's see what we got here for the rest of the globe here. Pretty quiet in terms of areas down south here. New Zealand, a little deep earthquake underneath the Kermadec Trench. I'm watching that area pretty closely here, folks. And the reason why I say that is because you have to imagine the time frame that has passed between big events that occur on regular occasions, such as the Alpine Fault and the Hikurangi subduction zone there across New Zealand. Both capable of producing upper 7s, upper 8s here across the Hikurangi subduction zone. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. Got a 5.4 out there. Looks like a run area, it looks like, maybe. 5.4 off of the plate boundary, 35 miles deep underneath this region. You know, we got the world pretty much in motion out here. Most of the focus has been obviously up there across the Russia area where that big 8.8 struck. Let's take a look here and see what we got going on. The last recorded earthquake of 4.6. Lots and lots of earthquake activity. Whether it's above normal or not, well, it's, man, almost 500 earthquakes there. Wow. I would definitely say here that's pretty, man, looking at that. It's probably normal or slightly above normal in terms of the earthquake aftershock sequence there. There is some migration southward. We do have to watch the center portion here along the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench for some large movement. And I say that because this 8.8 only partially released the strain out here. The Kuril-Kamchatka is a major subduction zone that extends down to the Japan Trench. And this entire area is capable of multiple 9s out here. So we do have to watch that very closely for some larger movement. But, there's been a lot of back and forth activity out here. California, West Coast, I do think California is destined to move. I do believe the Cascadia subduction zone is coming up for its time. It's just, it only rings true here because it's, got to remember the amount of time that has passed out here for the Cascadia. And there's actually been a little bit of speculation here that the Cascadia has also, or vice versa, for the San Andreas Fault has triggered one or another. Say for the San Andreas Fault here has triggered the Cascadia, and vice versa, Cascadia triggering the San Andreas Fault. Although back in 1906 that did not happen. 1700 with the mega quake up there along the Cascadia did not happen, but it has happened in the past there and past events. So it's a good possibility we could see that happen. Got to remember here, we're only on this planet for a few years, right? Realistically speaking, we're here for a few years. Be lucky if we can live 80 or 90 years for a human, right? But think of how many generations have passed since a big earthquake out here along the San Andreas Fault. It's building. And that's pretty much the only area, at least along the Pacific, that has not had any major rupture out here. Compared to the Pacific plate that's been moving like crazy. So obviously things will adjust. They're straining out here. I do think we got to watch the Cascadia subduction zone and the San Andreas Fault, okay? They're linked regardless here along the Pacific and the North American plate, the Juan de Fuca plate as well. So that's something we do have to watch specifically here, folks. Not to be scaremongering, but just got to be prepared. The folks out there that out there with their cameras on the beach, waiting for a 100-foot tsunami, that's really not good. Really not good. Space weather activity. We got a decent solar sunspot here, literally center disk of the sun facing us. That it could harbor maybe some X-flare activity. We got some decent M-flare activity here in the last couple days. Nothing in the terms of X-flare, but that is going to be sunspot number 4168. This is an older image. The newer image here shows quite a bit of complexity. Notice these dark cores here, blue, red, stretching across the eastern limb here. It's building. We definitely got a massive sunspot area out there that's capable of some decent M-flares, maybe an X-flare. That I'm leaning more towards maybe a 10% chance here of X-flare activity. I don't think solar ham. There we go, 10%. They bumped it up a little bit to a 10% chance for X-flare. M-flare at 40% chance, but it's directly facing Earth, and there is quite a bit of bright feature out there. So that tells us that things are getting ready to maybe spark, so to speak. Nothing major in terms of the auroras right now, but that could change. Watch for sunspot number 4168. Again, that's this area right here. Quick glance here at the Storm Prediction Center. Are we working? Yes, we are. Earlier this morning when I was doing the update, this gave me a 503 error code for some reason. Nothing major in terms of solar or severe weather activity, I do have to point out, okay, and I really have to point this out, because a lot of people here do not like these weather models that show maybe what's coming up here. But they do give a general indication of what may be happening as far as the upper and lower atmosphere. There was potentially a hurricane coming in here to Florida mid-month. That changed, and then ultimately it showed hitting into the Louisiana area. As you can see, that has completely disappeared from the weather forecast. So these are, they're to take with a grain of salt. There's not a whole lot of dedication here that's showing that there's any major tropical system heading to anywhere across the states for now. But it's something to watch here. These weather models are designed for a purpose, and that's to forecast the weather. So to ignore that completely would be foolish. But right now, it looks like the weather models have changed. Oh my gosh, I hope we don't have hiccups. I hope it's not a hiccup Monday night. I got it. There's hiccups coming. So I'm going to jump off here real quick. There's that one earthquake down across the subduction zone of the Peru-Chile Trench. That is interesting earthquake there. That is southwest of Santiago, right around where the 9.5 earthquake struck back in 1960. The biggest earthquake ever recorded here, at least in human history, down there across the Peru-Chile Trench. That's a major subduction zone interface there. Got a little 4.5. Anywhere, and just letting you guys know, anywhere across these subduction zones, that extends all the way from Japan, Aleutian Trench, Canada southward, Middle America Trench, Peru-Chile Trench, Hikurangi subduction zone, the South Sandwich Trench. Anywhere of these areas are capable of producing upper 8s and 9 magnitude earthquakes. That's a given. So it's possible we could see, earthquake activity in these quiet zones that have been so quiet for hundreds of years. Hikurangi, Alpine Fault, Cascadia. Gotta watch that, folks. I'm a little bit concerned here for the Cascadia for now because of the tremor and the amount of strain that's been building out here recently. So we just got to be on guard. We really have to. And we can't just be stating that, oh, this is fear-mongering. It's never going to happen. I mean, how many people do you work with at work? Say you work with people that say that, oh, there's never going to be an accident here at work. It never happens. And sure enough, it happens, right? A couple days later, I've worked a job there for 12 years, manufacturing fiberglass. And that's in my earlier years. I wasted, well, I can't say I wasted because I worked my life, supporting my kids and my family. But 12 years, rotating shifts, manufacturing fiberglass in a factory. And everyone was very non-complacent. And sure enough, when everyone becomes non-complacent there, stuff happens. It's just, we're living out here in a time where there's been hundreds of years since the last big earthquake activity. And everyone thinks nothing's going to happen. That is as wrong as you could be here. So we cannot be that person. And a little earthquake down there in Southern California. Rest of the graph's pretty quiet. We'll continue to watch this here, folks. Like I said, there's been so much movement out here across the Pacific. Minimal movement out there across the West Coast. Things have to adjust out here. And they will. We just got to be prepared. We'll catch you guys out here for the Tuesday morning update. Right, Tuesday morning. Yep, made it through Monday. Have a good one. We'll see you guys out here tomorrow. Please stay safe out there, everyone.